Hi, and welcome to the Sci-Fi Sunshine podcast.
Hi, this is Bria. I'm a speculative fiction author and a running mom, coming to you on the Sci-Fi Sunshine podcast in the Sunshine City, in the Sunshine State. And this morning, so I drop off my son at jiu-jitsu camp. He goes to a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school, which he loves, and he's 7, so he's getting a little better. He's having a lot of fun with it. So he is at camp all this week, having a blast, and it's Thursday, so you know how that is, where by the end of the week both mom and son are having trouble getting up by the last few days. So I managed to get him there. He was about 5 minutes late, but he made it still, and the sweet coaches were very gracious. But as I was leaving, I was remembering, it's Thursday. This is when I do my podcast. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about in the sci-fi realm and tie it into some things that are happening here in my area in Florida, and not just my area, but like this happens all over Florida and other states. Some of the things in sci-fi that kind of fascinate and make for really good entertainment are kind of the things of nightmares. So a lot of sci-fi tends to shift into the horror genre. Horror. I feel like I'm gonna have trouble pronouncing that word. The horror genre is kind of its own animal, because obviously you can blend things like sci-fi fantasy, you can blend fantasy horror, you can blend sci-fi horror. So it's not that those things are exclusive of each other, but horror also tends to make its way into a lot of genres, and I think it's because there are so many different types. It's such a broad term. Sometimes when I say the word horror, people are already turning off the podcast like, I don't, horror, gross. I'm not actually specifically thinking of gore and splatter and that kind of thing, because I can't handle a lot of that myself either. But some of the really great horror stories are like psychological horror, and just the mental game that some of the most popular genres are psychological thrillers, and that is a form of horror. So a lot of people don't think of it that way. You don't necessarily call it horror, but that's what it is. It is a type of horror it's a subcategory. So with science fiction, some of the more popular over the years sci-fi, like Predator, Aliens, gosh, I should have a better list off the top of my head. Even something like I Am Legend, which is a zombie horror, it stems from a scientific breakthrough. That's how that story develops. So it's technically sci-fi horror. And the reason I'm bringing up sci-fi and horror is because we had a tornado pretty close to home last night, and there have been a bunch of water spouts. This is nothing new, by the way. If you live in the Tampa Bay area, it's just par for the course. Like, it's summer, there are going to be water spouts often. If you're not paying attention to the weather, and maybe you're not constantly following Dennis Phillips, who most of us are. He's like the most amazing weatherman ever. You might not even be aware that there were a bunch of water spouts last week or whenever that was. And people with social media, people are catching it more on their cameras and posting it. So there's more awareness probably just from that fact alone. But it's not a new thing. They're around for the summer for the most part. There will be water spouts that just happen fairly frequently. And yesterday in Largo, which is about 20 minutes, maybe 15-20 minutes north of where I live, there was a tornado that I don't know much about the specs of it. I don't know how big it was. There are videos that I shared on my story that you can see, and there's debris. Now, unfortunately, there was, I believe, a mobile home park that was where it hit, and it like ripped up this mobile home, which is it's so sad to watch that. The reporting was that no one was hurt, so that's good. I'm guessing the person wasn't home. Okay, that's the sun. Hello. It is the Sci-Fi and Sunshine podcast. I don't know what to do about this. Okay. Okay, I'm at a slightly different angle now, so maybe you won't be blinded by the sun. I'm sorry. So, tornadoes happen to be something that since I was a kid, I was afraid of. I'm afraid of them, and I should look up if there's a term for being afraid of tornadoes. I have a fear of tornadoes. I don't really have a fear of heights. I don't like back when I was in high school, I was at a Young Life camp called Malibu in Canada, and they have this zip line that's like, I don't know, 70, 80 feet in the air. And I was just like hands free flying down that zip line. Heights, not a problem. I've been skydiving. I'm trying to think of like claustrophobia generally. I mean, I don't know. I haven't tested that one majorly, but I don't necessarily have a huge fear of claustrophobia. Don't have a fear of speaking in front of people. So I'm just giving this as an example of like, I'm not necessarily prone to be afraid of things, but this particular natural phenomenon has been my fear since I was a kid. And I did love the movie Twister. It's not like I was fearful watching that movie or anything, but just something about tornadoes. And the ones here are not as big as in, say, Kansas and Oklahoma and Nebraska, like the Arkansas, those places where they get the huge tornadoes fairly regularly. The ones here tend to be little bursts that come and go fairly quickly. And one of the reasons I'm bringing up science fiction is because sometimes when you have a movie like Twister. I haven't actually seen the new Twister movie. I heard it was good. I should watch it sometime. When you have a movie like Twister where the tornado is the focus, and that, that was not a sci-fi movie, obviously, but the scientific aspect of it was actually the focus of like the people chasing the storm and the relationship drama of the movie. In sci-fi, I think about some of the ways that adding an element of horror integrating it into a sci-fi story can really elevate and amp up the tension in the story. I know I just mentioned gore is not my thing, but I've watched The Walking Dead, and one of the more effective elements of that story is that it's a drama about these people who, of course, we have Rick Grimes, who finds himself basically in the zombie apocalypse, waking up in it, and the tension is that the zombies are always out there. No matter where the people are, they could find a safe place and feel safe for a night or two. But the zombies are always out on the peripheral. They're always thinking about what happens if the zombies find us or break through our barriers or whatever. And so even when you're having a really dramatic moment between two characters and it has nothing to do with the zombie apocalypse outside, that tension is there. So another movie I'm thinking of, like Aliens. Of course, the very first Alien movie, the tension is in my opinion, it's lower tension, and not necessarily in a bad way. It's more of a it's kind of a low simmer, a low burn, and the tension slowly increases as the movie continues. And the second movie, Aliens, that it's just, what's out there, because of course in the first movie they didn't know what they were going to be up against, or rather Sigourney Weaver didn't know what she was going to be up against, her character, Ripley. So in the second movie, the aliens are out there. They know they're out there. They're that peripheral threat. And so that's I'm taking a long time to explain that that's what I was thinking about with tornadoes and sci-fi of, and it doesn't have to be tornadoes. It's just I'm using that as my particular fear. So authors tend to find things like that. If it's going to be this peripheral threat that's always on, keeping the reader on the edge of their seat, partly because this threat could just pop in at any time. Tornadoes can pop in at any time. And so they can come out of nowhere. And even Dennis Phillips, our amazing suspenders weatherman, he wears suspenders a lot. He pointed out this storm last night came out of nowhere. There was hail, not at my house, but at like some of the areas near Seminole, Largo, which is again 15-20 minutes from my house. And then this tornado came out of nowhere. And so those types of things make for really good storytelling when it's number one, when it's plausible. So here in Florida, it is very plausible to have an out of the blue, let's see, what time was it? I don't know, 5 or 6 o'clock, maybe even, 6-ish in the evening last night. It's very plausible for that to happen. It's one of those could happen in the summer, particularly, anytime. That can just pop up anytime. So the plausibility was there. The ability for a storm like that to get intense really fast is there. So thinking about telling a sci-fi story with some kind of peripheral horror is how I'm categorizing it, is I think very effective, and being able to have that lurking threat always on the outskirts and maybe just always out of sight. I'm thinking of a movie, A Quiet Place. So one of the things that was predominantly horror with science fiction, basically threaded in because of the monsters. But one of the more effective things about that story was that you rarely saw what the monster was, the enemy. You didn't see it. It was often in the peripheral, or at the very opening when it moved so fast you just barely saw it. But the horror was what happened to their child, and you didn't even see it. You didn't see the gore. You didn't see any of it. It was just like that. That's one of the scarier openings to a movie. I think that was the first. Yeah, that would have been the first movie, A Quiet Place, because there's been sequels and I haven't seen the sequels yet. So, I'm very interested if anybody is still watching now that I've spent 15 minutes just talking about things that frighten me, and the way to write stories that can help with the tension and that kind of thing. I'm very interested in what are people afraid of? What is it that, so for example, I was posting about the tornadoes and saying, like, on my posts, this is my nightmare. I don't know about you guys. Like, so I'm very curious about what types of things, anybody who's watching, what types of things are you afraid of that would be either on the peripheral or maybe more in your face? Like, what is that you immediately think, oh yeah, I've had nightmares about that. So if you are willing and able to share that in the comments, I'm very interested in what that would be. And sometimes it's things that aren't obvious. Like, I have a friend who's afraid of crowds, and you think about that. How can you make a story where somebody is afraid of crowds, but it's like an act, and it's tied into that? I mean, you think about what is scary about a crowd. Well, one thing is if you're in a crowd that starts to get rowdy and you're in the middle of it and they start getting out of control. People have actually been trampled to death in crowds because of crazy stuff like that, where people get rowdy and maybe there's a fight that breaks out and some unfortunate bystander becomes a victim. So there's all sorts of ways to take the fear that we as people have and turn them into compelling stories. So that's me summing up my thesis. And now I'm gonna go for a jog over a bridge. And I hope everybody just has a wonderful Thursday. Thanks for watching this long, if you did.
That's all for now. As you venture through this sci-fi world we all find ourselves living in, may you be the sunshine to the people around you today. Adios.